No nobler captain ever trod than Captain Parkerbury Todd. So good, so wise, so brave he, but still, as all his friends would own, he had one folly, one alone, this captain in the Navy. I do not think I ever knew a man so wholly given to creating a sensation, or perhaps I should in justice say, to what in an Adelphi play is known as situation. He passed his time designing traps to flurry unsuspicious chaps. The taste was his innately. He couldn't walk into a room without ejaculating, "Boom!" which startled ladies greatly. He'd wear a mask and muffling cloak, not, you will understand, in joke, as some assume disguises. He did it actuated by a simple love of mystery and fondness for surprises. I need not say he loved a maid. His eloquence threw into shade all others who adored her. The maid, though pleased at first, I know, found, after several years or so, her startling lover bored her. So, when his orders came to sail, she did not faint or scream or wail or with her tears anoint him. She shook his hand and said, "Goodbye," with laughter dancing in her eye, which seemed to disappoint him. But ere he went aboard his boat, he placed around her little throat a ribbon, blue and yellow, on which he hung a double tooth. A simple token this, in sooth. 'Twas all he had, poor fellow. I often wonder, he would say, when very, very far away, if Angelina wears it. A plan has entered in my head. I will pretend that I am dead, and see how Angie bears it. The news he made a messmate tell. His Angelina bore it well. No sign gave she of crazing, but steady as the Inchcape rock, his Angelina stood the shock with fortitude amazing. She said, "Someone I must elect, poor Angelina, to protect from all who wish to harm her. Since worthy Captain Todd is dead, I rather feel inclined to wed a comfortable farmer." A comfortable farmer came, Bassanio Tyler was his name, who had no end of treasure. He said, "My noble gal be mine." The noble gal did not decline, but simply said, "With pleasure." When this was told to Captain Todd, at first he thought it rather odd and felt some perturbation. But very long he did not grieve. He thought he could a way perceive to such a situation. "I'll not reveal myself," said he, "till they are both in the ecclesiastical arena. Then suddenly I will appear, and paralyzing them with fear, demand my Angelina." At length arrived the wedding day. Accoutred in the usual way appeared the bridal body. The worthy clergyman began, when in the gallant captain ran and cried, "Behold your toddy!" The bridegroom perhaps was terrified, and also possibly the bride. The bridesmaids were affrighted. But Angelina, noble soul, contrived her feelings to control, and really seemed delighted. "My bride," said gallant Captain Todd. "She's mine, uninteresting clod, my own, my darling charmer." "Oh dear," said she, "you're just too late. I'm married to, I beg to state, this comfortable farmer." "Indeed," the farmer said, "she's mine. You've been and cut it far too fine." "I see," said Todd. "I'm beaten." And so he went to sea once more. Sensation he for aye forswore, and married on her native shore a lady whom he'd met before, a lovely Otaheitan. I once did know a Turkish man, whom I upon a two-pair back met. His name it was Effendi Khan Bakshish Pasha ben Allah Achmet. A Dr. Brown I also knew. I've often eaten of his bounty. The Turk and he, they lived at Hoo in Sussex, that delightful county. I knew a nice young lady there. Her name was Emily Macpherson, and though she wore another's hair, she was an interesting person. The Turk adored the maid of Hoo, although his harem would have shocked her. But Brown adored that maiden too. He was a most seductive doctor. They'd follow her where'er she'd go, a course of action most improper. She neither knew by sight, and so for neither of them cared a copper. Brown did not know that Turkish male. He might have been his sainted mother. The people in this simple tale are total strangers to each other. One day that Turk he sickened sore, and suffered agonies oppressive. He threw himself upon the floor, and rolled about in pain excessive. It made him moan, it made him groan, and almost wore him to a mummy. Why should I hesitate to own that pain was in his little tummy? At length the doctor came and rung as Allah Achmet had desired, who felt his pulse, looked up his tongue, and hemmed and hawed, and then inquired,
"Where is the pain that long has preyed upon you in so sad a way, sir?"
The turkey giggled, blushed, and said, "I don't exactly like to say, sir." "Come, nonsense," said good Dr. Brown. "So this is Turkish coyness, is it? You must contrive to fight it down. Come, come, sir, please to be explicit." The turkey shyly bit his thumb and coyly blushed like one half-witted. "The pain is in my little tum," he whispering at length admitted.
"Then take you this and take you that. Your blood flows sluggish in its channel.
You must get rid of all this fat and wear my medicated flannel. You'll send for me when you're in need. My name is Brown. Your life, I've saved it." "My rival," shrieked the invalid, and drew a mighty sword and waved it. "This to thy weazen Christian pest!" aloud the Turk in frenzy yelled it, and drove right through the doctor's chest the sabre and the hand that held it. The blow was a decisive one, and Dr. Brown grew deadly pasty. "Now see the mischief that you've done. You Turks are so extremely hasty. There are two Dr. Browns in who. He's short and stout, I'm tall and wizen. You've been and run the wrong one through. That's how the error has arisen." The accident was thus explained. Apologies were only heard now. "At my mistake I'm really pained. I am indeed, upon my word now. With me, sir, you shall be interred. A mausoleum grand awaits me."
"Oh, pray don't say another word. I'm sure that more than compensates me.
"But perhaps, kind Turk, you're full inside?" "There's room," said he, "for any number." And so they laid them down and died. In proud Stamboul they sleep their slumber.
"Come, collar this bad man. Around the throat he knotted me, till I to choke began. In point of fact, garrotted me."
So spake Sir Herbert White to James, policeman 32. All ruffled with his fight Sir Herbert was, and dirty too. Policeman nothing said, though he had much to say on it, but from the bad man's head he took the cap that lay on it.
"No, great Sir Herbert White. Impossible to take him up. This man is honest, quite."
"Wherever did you rake him up?"
"For burglars, thieves, and co, indeed, I'm no apologist, but I, some years ago, assisted a phrenologist.
Observe his various bumps, his head as I uncover it, his morals lie in lumps all round about and over it."
"Now take him," said Sir White, "or you will soon be ruining it. Bless me, I must be right. I caught the fellow doing it."
Policeman calmly smiled. "Indeed, you're mistaken, sir. You're agitated, riled, and very badly shaken, sir. Oh, surely here a sign should soften your rigidity. This gentleman combines politeness with timidity. Of shyness he has a lump, a hole for animosity, and like my fist his bump of generosity. Just here the bump appears of innocent hilarity, and just behind his ear are faith and hope and charity. There, let him go his ways. He needs no stern admonishing." The Bart in blank amaze exclaimed, "This is astonishing. I must have made a mull. This matter I've been blind in it. Examine, please, my skull, and tell me what you find in it." Policeman looked and said, with unimpaired urbanity, "Sir Herbert, you've a head that teems within humanity. Here's murder, envy, strife, propensity to kill any, and lies as large as life, and heaps of social villainy. Here's love of brand new clothes, embezzling, arson, deism, a taste for slang and oaths, and fraudulent trusteeism. Here's love of groundless charge, here's malice too, and trickery. Unusually large your bump of pocket pickery." "Stop," said the Bart. "My cup is full. I'm worse than him in all. Policeman, take me up. No doubt I am some criminal." That policeman's scorn grew large. Phrenology
had nettled it. He took that art in charge. I don't know how they settled it.
A lady fair of lineage high was loved by an ape in the days gone by. The maid was radiant as the sun. The ape was a most unsightly one. So it would not do. His scheme fell through. For the maid, when his love took form or shape, expressed such terror at his monstrous error that he stammered an apology and made his escape, the picture of a disconcerted ape. With a view to rise in the social scale, he shaved his bristles and he docked his tail. He grew mustachios and he took his tub, and he paid a guinea to a toilet club. But it would not do. The scheme fell through. For the maid was beauty's fairest queen, with golden tresses like a real princess's, while the ape, despite his razor keen, was the apiest ape that ever was seen. He bought white ties and he bought dress suits. He crammed his feet into bright tight boots, and to start his life on a brand new plan, he christened himself Darwinian Man. But it would not do. The scheme fell through. For the maiden fair whom the monkey craved was a radiant being with a brain far seeing, while a man, however well behaved, at best is only a monkey shaved. Babette, she was a fisher gal, with jupon striped and cap in crimps. She passed her days inside the howl, or catching little nimble shrimps. Yet she was sweet as flowers in May, with no professional bouquet.
Jacques was of the customs bowl, an officer at Gay Boulogne. He loved Babette, his love he told, and sighed, "Oh, soyez-vous, my own."
"But non," said she, "Jacques, my pet, vous êtes trop scraggy, poor Babette. Of one alone I nightly dream, an able mariner is he, and gaily serves the general steamboat navigation company. I'll marry him if he but will. His name, I rather think, is Bill. I see him, when he's not aware, upon our hospitable coast, reclining with an easy air upon the paw against a post, thinking of, I'll dare to say, his native Chelsea far away."
"Oh, mon," exclaimed the customs bold. "Mes yeux," he said, which means my eye.
"Oh, cher," he also cried, I'm told. "Pas Jove," he added with a sigh. "Oh, mon, oh, cher, mes yeux, pas Jove. Je n'aime pas cette enticing cove." The Panther's captain stood hard by. He was a man of morals strict. If e'er a sailor winked his eye, straightway he had that sailor licked, mast-headed all, such was his code, who dashed or jiggered, blessed or blowed. He wept to think a tar of his should lean so gracefully on posts. He sighed and sobbed to think of this on foreign, French and friendly coasts. It's human nature, perhaps, if so. Oh, isn't human nature low? He called his Bill, who pulled his curl. He said, "My Bill, I understand you've captivated some young girl on this here French and foreign land. Tender art your beauties jog. They do, you know, they do, you dog. You have a graceful way, I learn, of leaning airily on posts, by which you've been and caused to burn a tender flame on these here coasts. A fisher girl, I much regret, her age 16, her name Babette. You'll marry her, you gentle tar, your union I myself will bless, and when you matrimonied are, I will appoint her stewardess." But William hitched himself and sighed, and cleared his throat, and thus replied, "Not so. Unless you're fond of strife, you'd better mind your own affairs. I have an able-bodied wife awaiting me at Wapping Stairs. If all this here to her I tell, she'll lallop you and me as well. Skin deep and valued at a pin is beauty such as Venus owns. Her beauty is beneath her skin, and lies in layers on her bones. The other sailors of the crew, they always calls her Wapping Sue." "Oh, the captain said, I see. And is she then so very strong?"
She'd take her on a scruff, said he, and pitch you over to Boulogne. I pardon you, the captain said. The fair Babette you needn't wed. Perhaps the customs had his will, and coaxed the scornful girl to wed. Perhaps the captain and his bill and William's little wife are dead. Or perhaps they're all alive and well. I cannot tell.
Policeman Peter Forth I drag from his obscure retreat. He was a merry, genial wag who loved a mad conceit. If he were asked the time of day by country bumpkins green, he not unfrequently would say, 13:15. If ever you by word of mouth inquired of Mr. Forth the way to somewhere in the south, he always sent you north. With little boys he's beat along, he loved to stop and play. He loved to send old ladies wrong and teach their feet to stray. He would in frolic moments, when such mischief bent upon, take bishops up as betting men, bid ministers move on. Then all the worthy boys he knew he regularly licked, and always collared people who had had their pockets picked. He was not naturally bad or viciously inclined, but from his early youth he had a waggish turn of mind. The men of London grimly scowled, with indignation wild. The men of London gruffly growled, but Peter calmly smiled. Against this minion of the crown the swelling murmurs grew, from Camberwell to Kentish town, from Rotherhithe to Kew. Still humoured he his wagsome turn, and fed in various ways the coward rage that dared to burn, but did not dare to blaze. Still retribution has her day, although her flight is slow. One day that crusher lost his way near Poland Street, Soho. The haughty youth, too proud to ask, to find his way resolved, and in the tangle of his task got more and more involved. The men of London, overjoyed, came there to jeer their foe, and flocking crowds completely cloyed the mazes of Soho. The news on telegraphic wires sped swiftly o'er the lea. Excursion trains from distant shires brought myriads to see. For weeks he trod his self-made beats through Newport, Gerrard, Bear, Greek, Rupert, Frith, Dean, Poland streets, and into Golden Square. But all, alas, in vain, for when he tried to learn the way of little boys or grown-up men, they none of them would say. Their eyes would flash, their teeth would grind, their lips would tightly curl. They'd say, "Thy way thyself must find, thou misdirecting churl." And similarly also when he tried a foreign friend, Italians answered, "Il parle?" The French, "No comprehend?" The Russ would say with gleaming eye, "Sevastopol," and groan. The Greek said, "Topto, toptomai, topto, toptain, topton." To wander thus for many a year, that crusher never ceased. The men of London dropped a tear. Their anger was appeased. At length, exploring gangs were sent to find poor Forth's remains. A handsome grant by Parliament was voted for their pains. To seek the poor policeman out, bold spirits volunteered, and when at length they solved the doubt, the men of London cheered. And in a yard, dark, dank, and drear, they found him on the floor. It leads from Richmond Buildings near the royalty stage door. With brandy cold and brandy hot they plied him, starved and wet, and made him sergeant on the spot, the men of London's pet. 'Twas on the shores that round our coast from Deal to Ramsgate span that I found alone on a piece of stone an elderly naval man. His hair was weedy, his beard was long, and weedy and long was he, and I heard this wight on the shore recite in a singular minor key. "Oh, I am a cook and a captain bold, and the mate of the Nancy brig, and a boatswain tight, and a midshipmite, and the crew of the captain's gig." And he shook his fists and he tore his hair, till I really felt afraid, for I couldn't help thinking the man had been drinking, and so I simply said, "Oh, elderly man, it's little I know of the duties of men of the sea, but I'll eat my hand if I understand how you can possibly be at once a cook and a captain bold and the mate of the Nancy brig and a boatswain tight and a midshipmite and the crew of the captain's gig." Then he gave a hitch to his trousers, which is a trick all seamen larn, and having got rid of a thumping quid, he spun this painful yarn. "'Twas in a good ship Nancy Bell that we sailed to the Indian Sea, and there on a reef we come to grief, which has often occurred to me, and pretty nigh all of the crew was drowned. There were 77 a soul, and only 10 of the Nancy's men said ear to the muster roll. There was me and the cook and the captain bold and the mate of the Nancy brig and the boatswain tight and a midshipmite and the crew of the captain's gig. For a month we'd neither wittles nor drink, till hungry we did feel, so we drawed a lot and according shot the captain for our meal. The next lot fell to the Nancy's mate, and a delicate dish he made. In our appetite with the midshipmite we 7 survivors stayed, and then we murdered the boatswain tight, and he much resembled pig. Then we whittled free, did the cook and me, on the crew of the captain's gig. Then only the cook and me was left, and the delicate question which of us two goes to the kettle arose, and we argued it out as sich. For I loved that cook as a brother, I did, and the cook he worshipped me. But we both be blowed if we'd either be stowed in the other chap's hold, you see. "I'll be eat if you dines off me," says Tom. "Yes, that," says I, "you'll be. I'm boiled if I die, my friend," quoth I. And exactly so quoth he. Says he, "Dear James, to murder me, what a foolish thing to do. For don't you see that you can't cook me, while I can and will cook you?" So he boils the water and takes the salt and the pepper in portions true, which he never forgot, and some chopped shallot and some sage and parsley too. "Come here," says he, with a proper pride, which his smiling features tell. "'Twill soothing be if I let you see how extremely nice you'll smell." And he stirred it round and round and round, and he sniffed at the foaming froth, when I ups with his heels and smothers his squeals in the scum of the boiling broth, and I eat that cook in a week or less, and as I eatin' be the last of his chops, why, I almost drops, for a vessel in sight I see. And I never grin, and I never smile, and I never laugh nor play, but I sit and croak, and a single joke I have, which is to say, "Oh, I am a cook and a captain bold, and the mate of the Nancy brig, and a boatswain tight, and a midshipmite, and the crew of the captain's gig."